Colorado Rockies have made some new additions over the last week, and today we break everything down. Coming up next on the DNVR Rockies podcast. What's up, everyone? Welcome into the DNVR Rockies podcast. Oh boy, it has been a interesting week here for the Colorado Rockies, and we are going to talk about it today on the DNVR Rockies podcast. We are live from the Toyota Lounge, and we've got a lot to cover today. I think I positively jinxed us, Spencer, because last week I was borderline complaining about the fact that we had nothing to talk about, and we're maybe spoiled this offseason because I feel like the last few years it's been a nothing offseason. But this year we've actually had good news, and we finally had kind of hit that little lull of the offseason where it's like, all right, what are we going to do? What are we going to talk about? And ask and you shall receive. The Rockies provide. They sign a pitcher in Michael Lorenzen, and they also brought in an outfielder from the Diamondbacks, Jake McCarthy, which we have not talked about yet. So
no, some
good stuff.
Rockies news in the early January portion is we're already getting excited for pitchers and catchers to report. That's coming up very soon. And now the Rockies are added a fair amount of depth pieces that nobody really, it's not emergency show worthy, but we've had now two transactions here in the past week. One, shout out to the Rockies for signing Michael Lorenzen. And they're also doing these moves like super late at night, off the record. We can't get any news in the middle of the day where it's like, hey, let's fire up an emergency pod. But shout out to Yaya for setting us up to talk about Michael Lorenzen, the Rockies Shohei Ohtani coming in here on a 1-year, $8 million deal. And then they struck a deal with the Diamondbacks, which I believe I saw the tweet. It was only the second time in their club's history, which the Diamondbacks and Rockies obviously don't go back very far. Both teams started in the 90s, that they've traded in the division. And getting Jake McCarthy, a guy off of a down year, for Josh Groves, who kind of signals to me, and we'll get into it, that he was just traded for, and the new regime didn't think very highly of what Bill Schmidt and company at the deadline got back for Ryan McMahon. So they flipped another one of those guys. And as you tweeted this week, when you look at it, it's basically Ryan McMahon for Jake McCarthy and Griffin Herring, which at that point you're like, all right, I can be positive about that move.
Yeah, and to answer Scott's point in the chat, he says it's weird that the Lorenzen signing hasn't been made official. Sometimes these take a little bit longer. I mean, it's as official as it can be without it actually being official yet. So I think there's a lot of other moving pieces that we sometimes forget about. So I'm not too worried about that. We are going to break down the Jake McCarthy move because I do think out of the two, Michael Lorenzen made sense, right? There was a good understanding that this front office was going to try to sign a veteran free agent starting pitcher to help booster this starting rotation for the Rockies. That move made sense. And I don't think there were a lot of people out there that were like, oh, this sucks. If nothing else, worst case scenario, Michael Lorenzen is going to be a guy that just eats innings, right? But the Jake McCarthy deal, I think, caught a lot of people off guard because when we talked about it on the emergency pod, you had asked, what's next for the Rockies? What other signings do they make? What other deals come down the pipeline? And I had said, if another one comes down the pipeline, I think it might end up being at first base. But we were thinking either another pitcher or a first baseman. None of us had any idea or any expectation that they would sign an outfielder because the outfield depth, albeit for Rocky standards, is one of the deeper position pools that we have. So it was a bit of a surprise when it happened. So we do have a lot to talk about with Jake McCarthy, but I want to start the show with something else just real quick before we get into that. And it has to do with Lefty's first comment. Former Rocky, Nolan Arenado, traded to the Arizona Diamondbacks, our current NL West rival, so you can say, and traded from the Cardinals to the Diamondbacks. And Nolan Arenado will be will be joining the NL West with the Rockies again, albeit, from a rival perspective. But that news just came down right before the show popped off. So I figured we'd start the show by kind of talking about that for a quick second.
Yeah, ironic that now a second team. It's funny because when you get a national outlook on the Rockies, it's always been the same, right? And they're hoping this offseason and the new regime, they're going to have to do some things to change that, right?
Yeah.
When you have a narrative as a franchise, unless the only thing that could have completely flipped the narrative for the Rockies in the national media's minds is a sell of the team, right? That kind of gives you a full brand new outlook on the entire team from top to bottom. But the Rockies did the second best thing, or the second most narrative changing thing, and redid their entire front office, right? So owner's still the same, we know that, but everybody running the team, making the player decisions, the pitching regime, all the coaches cleaned out, and we have a whole new set of coaches, new eyes, new scouts, new guys deciding who plays for the Rockies and who will be drafted and who will be traded. So the Rockies are trying to change the narrative, right? And everybody thought the Rockies were stupid for trading Nolan Arenado. And I'm not saying that they're not wrong. They had reason to be mad. I was mad. I was upset. Nolan was my GOAT growing up, or not growing up, but like becoming a Rockies fan.
Sure.
And when they started to cook a little bit, 2016, 2017, 2018, you thought, all right, they're on this path. They have Nolan, they have DJ, they have all these good players, and we're going to be a good team for the next 5 to 10 years. And then the Rockies traded him, and what made the trade even worse is the fact that the Rockies paid $50 million, which for a team that barely spends money as it is in a relative term in the MLB, that felt like a dagger, right? And now everybody thinks the Cardinals are just this, which they are. They're this historic, smart franchise. They're trying to rebuild, and now they're paying the Diamondbacks to take Nolan Arenado. So he's now been traded twice, and both times the team giving him up has said, we have to pay to give him up. And I'm not going to shit on Nolan Arenado as much as I want to and say that, the Rockies have more playoff wins, or as many playoff wins as he did the entire time he went to St. Louis.
Yep.
But it's not just the Rockies that made this mistake of having Nolan Arenado at too high of a price where you can't trade him and get something fair back in return. And I haven't looked at, I saw the name of the guy that the
Jake Martinez. Yeah.
So they're not like, it's not like the D-backs gave up Ketel Marte to get Nolan Arenado, right? And the Cardinals are kind of in a rebuild, which they signified this offseason with some of the moves, and this just dives deeper into that. But it does make me feel a little better, even though I'm kind of erasing what the previous regime did for the Rockies. It makes me feel a little better that a well-known, famous, organization like the Cardinals,
less dysfunctional,
less dysfunctional organization like the Cardinals with a lot of history, had to do essentially the same thing to get rid of this guy.
Yeah, but here's the difference, though, man. The Rockies paid $50 million to get rid of Nolan Arenado in his prime, in his Hall of Fame, all-star, one of the best players in all of baseball, prime. The Cardinals getting rid of him right now, yeah, he's not a washed-up player by any means, but he is not what he used to be. His defense is still above average. His offense is average to a slightly above average, depending on the time of year, but he's not what he used to be. He's definitely on the downward trajectory of his career, but the Rockies got rid of him. Yeah, he's on the back nine. The Rockies got rid of him, though, when he was at the peak of all that, and they paid the Cardinals to do it. And so while I understand your sentiment, and I know that this is purple-tinted glasses, Spencer, this year, that is the new year, new you, I just think it's still different. It's still so different. But, the past is the past. No point in dwelling in it. Nolan Arenado will be back at Salt River Flats Field in Arizona. He'll be back in the NL in the NL West. And yeah, I mean, interesting. I do think this is a great deal for the Diamondbacks. I think Scott tweeted about it about an hour ago when it came out, saying that like this, this was a deal that the Rockies could have made. And while, yes, on paper, I mean, sending away just one of their prospects and basically paying $5 million a year for Nolan Arenado is a great deal for the Diamondbacks, Nolan's never coming back to Colorado. While you could make the argument that he might end up getting into the Hall of Fame with the Rockies, maybe that's a conversation for a different day. I don't think he's ever going to re-sign, even as like a retirement deal with the Colorado Rockies. I just think the wounds cut too deep. Maybe he's healed and moved on. He's not bitter about it, but I don't think he wants to go back at any point in his career.
No, and it really depends upon the relationship between him and the Monforts, really. And we don't know how deep that relationship is. I do see an avenue where maybe Paul DePodesta, Josh Burns, they get a couple years in here and they've kind of rebuilt the Rockies and changed people's perception on the Rockies, that Nolan Arenado wouldn't be, as opposed to not necessarily returning here, but going into the Hall of Fame as a Rocky, because that's where he really made his hay in his career. But the ownership and the relationship there, which we don't know exactly how it is. It could be bad, could be good, it could be non-existent. It could have been more, Nolan dealing with the Bill Schmitz and the Dan O'Dowds or whoever was the GM at the time and traded him away. But it's fun. It's going to be fun to see him back here as many games a year as he will be now, 9 or 10 usually, back at Coors Field, playing for, the division is a joke. You're
playing for the wild card.
Yeah, it's like the NFC West in football. 3 of the final 4 teams in the NFC are from the same division. It's just like that here. You're playing for second place, and then you're not only playing for second place, but you're playing for second place against a Padres team that expects to compete every single year, a Giants team that's up and down, but does expect to compete as well, and then you're the Diamondbacks, who are surprisingly, World Series 2 years ago, but they're a team that is either going to make a huge leap or try to compete, or they'll be a 500 team, which is,
injuries aside, they should be good. Corbin Burns just screwed him last year when he got hurt. And injuries aside, the Diamondbacks on paper are a really good team. So I'm curious to see how that all plays out. I think that's a huge move. Arguably one of the biggest, moves of this offseason. It's been a relatively quiet offseason from a, blockbuster deal type of standpoint, but that was pretty big. That's pretty big. Nolan Arenado coming to the NL West. So, he's going to be back at Coors Field, like you said, a good amount of times this year. We're going to get to talk to him. I will say he has, every time he's come to Coors Field, and it's not as much since playing with the Cardinals, but he's been very happy to be back, right? As a visitor, but he recently, within the 2 years that I've been there and spoken to him in the media scrums and all that kind of stuff, he's had good memories, right? He's come in and said, hey, I got nothing but good things to say. Obviously, it didn't work out, right? He doesn't rehash all of that stuff, but he's like, I had great memories here, and now I'm happy with where I am and whatever. So it doesn't seem like he has the same situation as Tulo, where Tulo, you talk to Troy Tulowitzki about his time with the Rockies, and he's like, I'm not talking about those guys. Like, I don't want to even think about my time in Colorado. I think Nolan has better feelings around Colorado. It just didn't work out. It was business, right? He didn't like the way the Rockies were being run. Rockies weren't helping him out. He moved on. But I do think there's a good chance that when he goes into the Hall of Fame one day, it could be as a Rocky. Yeah,
absolutely. I think that's where, I don't know how many Gold Gloves he won in a row as a Rocky, but it was just every year you could pencil him in.
Well, he made the playoffs.
He made the playoffs. He was a no-show in the playoffs.
I know.
But he made the playoffs with the Rockies, and
he was there.
He was there, and he was the hero of Colorado baseball for a long time. He had the Father's Day walk-off grand slam. He had that
was the cycle, right?
Yeah, exactly. And then he had there's a few great photos of him, the screaming photo. I think we have that somewhere in our,
where he's bleeding on his arm.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. There's been a lot of great moments for Nolan Arenado, and so that wound is slightly healing. But like I kind of described to you off camera, the wound won't heal until we get a guy that is of that ilk and that level of MLB player where you can kind of erase it. Because Carmelo Anthony was that guy for the Nuggets, did the same thing, hated it here at the end, wanted his way out. We traded him, got a bunch of guys back, rebuilt our team, but we didn't have the national attention that we got all the time with Carmelo. But Jokic came along and changed all of that for us. We haven't had our Rockies Jokic yet.
Yeah.
And if it's Condon, if it's Holiday, great. Yeah. But that wound will still not be sealed until we get the super glue that is the next superstar.
We haven't had our rebound, man. We haven't had our Rockies rebound. You always need someone after a toxic breakup. You need that rebound that's going to get your head back on straight, get you thinking clearly again. And we haven't had that yet.
The best way to get over someone is to get under someone else.
And we need to get under Charlie Condon right now. That's exactly what we need to do. All right, this is getting derailed. We got to hit our first break of the show. After the break, let's talk about Jake McCarthy. Why did the Rockies sign yet another outfielder when they already have so many? We're going to talk about that coming up next. Well, I want to give some huge love to our friends over at Xfinity because Xfinity has their 5-year price guarantee. And what if you could have reliable and intelligent Wi-Fi? And what if you could keep it at the same price for 5 years? That's the Xfinity 5-year price guarantee. That's the crazy thing about Xfinity. 5 years is a long time. So much can change in 5 years, but not your Wi-Fi plan. And the cool thing about Xfinity Wi-Fi too is that it is intelligent Wi-Fi, which means that it adjusts, it adapts, it learns from itself so that it can predict problems and make sure that your Wi-Fi is running smoothly. If anything ever pops up, if there's any blips in your internet service, they will take care of that so that you can live stress-free and worry-free. And we know that Wi-Fi is such an important part of all of our lives that you got to make sure you have a Wi-Fi that is reliable and built to last. So lock in your price and unlock the possibilities with Xfinity. Learn more at xfinity.com. Xfinity, imagine that. Well, I also want to give some huge love to our friends over at New Built Restoration and Construction. They are a group of licensed general contractors who can help you with any project, big or small. And the cool thing about New Built Construction and Restoration is they're available 24/7. So if a home emergency hits, God forbid, I understand it's never a sexy thing to talk about, but we know that home emergencies sometimes happen and you got to be prepared. The cool thing about New Built is that they have licensed general contractors that are available 24/7. So it could be 3 a.m. and you could be fast asleep and you wake up, you hear some pipes leaking or something else going on in the house, you call them up, they will be able to send someone to your house and get you taken care of. We were talking just a moment about stress-free living. Well, this is a company that you got to have on speed dial so that you can live that stress-free life. So when that home emergency hits, you are prepared. With New Built Restoration and Construction, they will be there at nubilt.com or call 720-903-4254 and let them know that DNVR sent you. All right. Why did the Colorado Rockies trade Josh Gross, a pitcher playing? What level was he pitching in?
I believe it was high A.
Okay. Yeah. He was pitching in the minors, came over from the Ryan McMahon deal, traded Josh Gross outright for Diamondbacks outfielder Jake McCarthy. McCarthy had a down 2025. He had a good start to the year, but then kind of struggled with some injuries, had a down end of the season. Think maybe Thairo Estrada, but younger, right? But had a couple really good years before that. And the Diamondbacks really thought like that he was going to be the guy. I mean, they thought he was going to be the next Brenton Doyle. He had a really good year.
Yeah, he was
these last couple years.
Like Dinger's Burner brought up, I was looking through some of his stats, and he was a Rookie of the Year candidate in 2024. And
like Nolan Jones.
You're buying low.
Yeah.
You're buying low here. You're very low risk. And this does signal to me that, they're not only having to redo some of the moves or fix some of the moves, the Toglias, the Warming Burner Bells. And I'm not saying these guys aren't good or are. They're just clearing out some of the old players in the old regime, but they're literally trading away. The Rockies are trading away a guy that was acquired not 5 months ago at the deadline or 7 months ago, whenever it is now. It's January. But Jake McCarthy gives you that left-handed bat, which we talked about. And now it's very interesting because if you would have given us a power ranking, or we would have power ranked where the Rockies need to trade for a player, outfield would have probably been the last spot that either of us.
The very bottom.
Yeah, we would have had it at the very bottom. But what this does signify to me too is the Rockies are like they've told us, and the Rockies have told us a lot of things, right? We've heard as Rockies fans, as Rockies media, we've heard words and words and words. And when we went to winter meetings, they told us, hey, guys are going to have to earn their spot on the major league roster, right? And this is exactly what that signifies to me, because while our outfield is full, and while you look at how stacked it is, and I'm saying this in air quotes for those of you listening to this pod, an audio version, there was a bunch of guys, like I believe one of the first comments, Veen, Yanquiel Fernandez, there's a few guys that hit from the left-handed side that are outfielders that both played at the MLB level last year, but did not really look like MLB players. And that doesn't mean you're giving up on those guys, but that means now that Zach Veen, Yanquiel Fernandez, those guys are going to have to earn their way up through playing well at AAA this year to be on the Major League roster, because Jake McCarthy is going to start on the Major League roster. He's going to be your fourth outfielder, and it gives you an extra left-handed bat that can you can place in the lineup with Mickey Moniak, because right now, as we talked about, Mickey Moniak is the only consistent left-handed bat you have. And this isn't necessarily a replacement for Mickey Moniak. I don't see it that way. I see it as you want to have at least 2 lefties in your lineup every day. And now when Hunter Goodman's catching, this is a perfect guy you can throw in there and sprinkle in a couple of lefties along with Mickey Moniak. And an underrated part about this guy's game, or really the best part of his game right now as a player he is, because of such a down 2025 at the plate, this guy's fast.
Yeah.
And this guy covers a lot of ground in the outfield. So that is huge to have at Coors Field. I think he fits the profile of a right fielder, a center fielder. But I'd like to get your take on this, obviously. I don't see this as they get Jake McCarthy and now somebody else is imminent on the move. I think he's a perfect 4th outfielder, left-handed bat that can also play multiple positions and is above average defensively.
Yeah. I think you have 2 options, 2 outcomes in which you can go from this move, Jake McCarthy being acquired by the Colorado Rockies. One, this could be, like you said, a 4th outfield option, right? You have Beck in left field, you've got Doyle in center field, and you have Moniak in right field. You have McCarthy, who's on the bench, or could take over for Beck if Beck is struggling, or Moniak, or he could kind of be your bench player, or then you have Tyler Freeman as your utility option. The other way that this goes is that this signifies basically a depth piece where they say we are preparing to move on from Zach Veen, or from Jordan Beck, or from Yanquiel Fernandez, or from a combination of those guys. And so we need some depth out there in the outfield, or maybe Moniak as well. So we need some depth out there in the outfield of a big league guy who's going to be there, who's going to, who we can trust to go out there and play and give us some consistent at-bats and give us some consistent defensive play, that if we decide we're going to move on from the Moniak or from the Zach Veen or Yanquiel Fernandez or some of these other guys, or even, hell, Brenton Doyle is definitely in that mix as well, we've got a guy in there that we can trust. And while the struggles that McCarthy had last year were, I don't know, I wouldn't say super concerning, but they were real. They were legitimate struggles. He had a down 2024 or 2025. His ceiling is super high, and he is super cheap. So you're getting him for next to nothing. You have the potential of having a Mickey Moniak type of season from him, where you're like, all right, this guy is legit, and he becomes an actual starter and a part of our team because he's earned it. And if it doesn't work out, you move on. You're not breaking the bank for this guy. And so I like it. I didn't think I would when I first saw it come down the pipeline and we saw, outfielder attached to the name. And I first thought to myself, it just doesn't make sense. Like it has to mean that they're going to trade Brenton Doyle or Mickey Moniak. But the more I think about it, I do think it's just opening up your options. I think in a year where you're not competing for the playoffs, Jake McCarthy gives you more options if you're the Colorado Rockies front office to say, like I said, either add that depth piece as a 4th outfielder or give you some opportunities to make some other moves, and you have someone else now that you can easily put into right field or center field if you find yourself with a vacancy because of a trade you made.
Exactly. And what this signifies to me, I'm going to call this on January the 13th. We did our 26 predictions for 2026. And my prediction was that by the end of the year, one of my hotter takes was that Rock Reggio would be your starting second baseman at the end of the year, September.
Okay.
What this signifies to me is opening day, Rockies at Miami, your starting second baseman this year at the start of the season is Tyler Freeman.
Really?
I think that's where they're going to go. And one of the comments at the very beginning, it said, the Rockies only have 5 infielders on their depth chart or on their 40-man roster right now. That's Blaine Crim, who's presumably your starting first baseman, Kyle Karros, presumably your starting third baseman, Ryan Ritter, maybe your second baseman, and Ezekiel Tovar, obviously your starting shortstop, and then Adele Amador. So what this signifies to me is, and in some of the comments too, talking about like Moniak being the 5th guy out, I don't see it that way, because I see Tyler Freeman as a super utility guy that if he hits the way he hit in April, May, and June last year...
Which is unlikely, by the way.
Which is unlikely, yes. But he has to be in your lineup every day, and he'll be your starting second baseman opening day.
I think Tyler Freeman, if there's going to be a guy that kind of fizzles out as the season gets going, I think it's Freeman. He had a great start to the year, but I just think the ceiling is too low. We're talking about a high ceiling for Jake McCarthy. I think the ceiling's too low for Tyler Freeman. I think we saw what his best was And I don't know if he has the sustainability to keep that up year in and year out. And we saw a bit of a dip from him at the end of last year. So I don't know if Freeman has the offensive consistency to warrant a long-term roster spot. I think he's a great utility guy, but if we're being honest, I'd rather have Ryan Ritter as a utility guy than Tyler Freeman. I get that Ryan Ritter's not going into the outfield, but I'd rather have Ryan Ritter kind of on the bench, subbing in at times and giving some rest days to some of your guys in the infield than I would Tyler Freeman. So I wouldn't be surprised by anything. I'll say that, but I would be a little bit more. It would give me a little bit more of an eyebrow raise if I saw Tyler Freeman as your starting second baseman in 2026.
Yeah, and I don't necessarily think that it's good. I don't think that's like a positive that Tyler Freeman needs to start at second base. But I think he is, as we talked about last year with where the Rockies roster was at during the season, there's so many guys that can play a few positions. Yeah. And I think that's where Freeman and Ritter are a perfect tandem of, now, if the Rockies go out and sign a MLB level first baseman and a MLB level second baseman, and those two are your starters, and then Ritter and Freeman are your bench guys, your first and second guys off the bench. They're starting, Freeman's got versatility in the outfield and the infield. Ritter can play short, Ritter can play second, Ritter can play third. I think that's a decent start to 2026, but then the problem becomes, is Ritter getting enough at bats to see if he's an MLB level player?
Yeah.
And that's where I could see them maybe this is an odd man out situation where they then trade or release or get rid of Freeman or Moniak. But at the same time, I think those two guys are perfect to have as utility guys, can play them anywhere. You can start them once or twice a week, give some other guys some rest, and have their bats in the lineup. And Ritter's another guy that I believe wholeheartedly this year the Rockies are going to steal a ton more bases and be more aggressive on the base paths. And I think Ritter is a perfect guy to do that. And Freeman showed us some of that last year as well.
Yeah. If you had to predict which guy gets moved, Tyler Freeman or Mickey Moniak, who would you do? If you were the general manager, if you were Paul DePodesta, who are you moving? Tyler Freeman or Mickey Moniak?
You're probably at this right now, if I were to make a trade today, I'd probably move Mickey Moniak because he's got value.
Yep.
And he's a guy that you could trade. Like, I would love to see them trade Mickey Moniak for an MLB level pitcher. He's not going to be an ace, but maybe a 4 or 5 guy that can also start for you this year. And then a prospect in the outfield, a lower level prospect, a guy that's not imminent, not ready to come up in 26 or 27, but I think that's the kind of value you could get right now. Like, if they would have traded Tyler Freeman at the trade deadline last year, you're putting it in the hands of Bill Schmidt to get something back for him, but that would have been the time to do it. The guy was leading the NL in batting for
he was
6 to 8
going
weeks
towards
of
an
the season.
NL batting title.
Yeah,
which is insane.
Right, and that's not the player that you're going to get this year, but trading Tyler Freeman right now feels a lot like the reverse of what you would get, what the Diamondbacks got trading McCarthy here. Yeah. You're going to get a low-level, high-A, double-A pitcher that may or may not work out, but I don't think the value's there to trade Freeman. And he has, with the uncertainty of the roster and position players that you have, Tyler Freeman, to me, has too much versatility to get rid of him.
He's your ultimate utility guy. I don't think he's going to have the year he had last year, but he is truly your ultimate utility guy. If I'm Paul DePodesta and I make this move for Jake McCarthy, and now you have technically 4 outfielders, maybe 5, that could play at the big league level at this point, with Beck in left field, Doyle in center field, Moniak in right field, McCarthy now, and Tyler Freeman, I'm moving Mickey Moniak. That's got to be one of the first things I do, because the value is high with Mickey Moniak right now, and you don't know what kind of season you're going to get. Nothing's guaranteed. He took a big step forward last year. You don't need him at this point. Jake McCarthy is Mickey Moniak, but faster, right? He's got better defensive ability. Yes, we don't know what kind of offensive season Jake McCarthy's going to have, but we don't know what kind of offensive season Mickey Moniak is going to have either, and you're rebuilding. So there's a guy that's probably not a part of the future of your organization in Mickey Moniak, but has value right now, and now you just traded for a guy in Jake McCarthy who can fit into that spot pretty seamlessly. I think you got to move Mickey Moniak. You have to, in my opinion. I get what you're saying with the whole idea of going with a four guy outfield. I I understand that depth feels nice, and it does take the pressure off having to push some of the young guys into the system earlier than they're ready for. But I just think you freed up Mickey Moniak to get moved, and I think that's, in my opinion, why you made the Jake McCarthy deal.
Yeah, do you think it's if you're a Rockies fan and you're watching, let's say Mickey Moniak starts in right field this year, and he has relatively the same season that he had last year, does that make it easier to trade him at the deadline, or does that make it harder? Because
easier.
The way he was last year,
talking about Mickey Moniak?
Yeah, being as young as he was and kind of a reclamation project, and really one of the bright spots that the Rockies had of all of 2025, hit 20-plus bombs, was one of the main cogs of the offense for a good part of the season. But he's also in this weird spot where he's still young enough, even though he was the oldest Rocky in the starting lineup for a lot of the
27,
time.
Something like that?
Yeah, he's still young enough to be a potential piece and has the pedigree of a first overall pick to be a potential piece that you could trade, but you could also say, hey, we're staking to this guy at right field. He also has a little bit of versatility, played a lot of center field last year, so then maybe it's easier to move Brenton Doyle, especially with Jake McCarthy now could play center field. Yeah.
If Mickey Moniak has a good year, I still think, it's got to be a monumental season. He's got to be an all-star. He's got to be your next Hunter Goodman. I still think he's not a part of the future, the long-term future for the Colorado Rockies. I think you got to move him. I think it's the similar situation that we're having with Brenton Doyle, where I look at Brenton Doyle and I say, okay, he's only 28. Sure, he could have another good 5 or 6 years in him, but how much of his prime are we still going to get when the Rockies are a playoff competitive team? How long do we think that's going to take? And realistically, it's going to take a while. It's going to take years. So I just don't know if Moniak is the guy for that, if Doyle's the guy for that, but I guess we'll have to wait and see. So it gives you options, though. It definitely gives you options. We got to pause for our next break. After the break, though, we got to talk about Hunter Goodman a little bit. And it's not for a reason that you guys think, but we got to talk about a little Hunter Goodman and also this new pitching rotation for the Rockies that's coming up next. Well, folks, it is Taco Tuesday. So today we actually got a little treat. We got to chow down on some Taco Bell before the show because it's Taco Tuesday. And of course, we love our friends at Taco Bell. So take a look at this little video. What's up, everyone? It is Taco Tuesday here at the DNVR offices. It's my favorite day of the week because we get to dive in on some awesome tacos, awesome Taco Bell. And I got something a little bit different today. We've got the Crispy Chicken Game Day Pack here, which has the quesarito. They've got a bunch of different options, but I've actually never tried their chicken. So I'm gonna dive in to this here.
Get some sauce. Sauce it up.
Yeah. I took a bite first, so I'm going to take a...
Got a delivery of Taco Bell on Sunday. And it made my Sunday evening.
Also, shout out to the spicy volcano sauce.
Wow.
So many different types of sauces, but you just can't go wrong.
Double dipping.
That's good. You cannot go wrong with Taco Bell. Head to your nearest Taco Bell. Enjoy Taco Tuesday and enjoy Taco Bell with DNVR. Well, that was good. That was a nice little flavor burst before the show. Got me some good energy. And
still got half my burrito sitting over there.
I know. I'm looking at my little chicken in the corner.
Like waiting on it. Yeah, I bit the wrapper. I was so hungry for some Taco Bell. I ate some of the wrapper.
Also want to give a quick shout out to our friends. Well, our friends. It's us. It's DNVR. We've got some events coming up, and we've got the big one on Saturday. Broncos tailgate, the first ever official Broncos tailgate in DNVR history.
Playoff.
It's going to be playoff.
Yes.
Yeah, very good.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the caveat.
The first ever DNVR Broncos tailgate. Come hang out with us Saturday, 11 to 2 at the Sports Fan on Federal. If you're going to the game or not going to the game, we have a lot of people show up to the tailgate. Free food, not free, but included food, included drinks. It's a great time. We got Saucy Southern Barbecue out there, Sexy Pizza, Breck Brew, flowing.
Good music.
Coors Light flowing. Yeah, great music. DJ set up the booth. We got the Broncos pregame show live from the tailgate, little college game day style. And then we've also got on Saturday, we've got our Nuggets suite takeover. So you can do both. You can go to the Nuggets suite with us, and you can go to the Broncos tailgate, watch the Broncos win, come to the bar, go to the Nuggets, hang out in a suite with D-Line, Adam, and all the guys at the Nuggets Stadium to watch them play the Washington Wizards. Should be fun. Should be really fun. That sounds like an ideal day. Starting your morning with Broncos. Hopefully, you enjoy that moment. Broncos get the win, and then you get to go
right into Nuggets.
Yeah, right into a Nuggets dominant win.
And then the Rockies, in the midst of all of that, sign Paul Goldschmidt
Yep. Yeah,
to a
that's gonna happen.
or
I feel
Luis
like
Ariz.
it's every
best
every
day in the
move that
world.
they've made has just been such a random. I mean, shit, I did the Paul DePodesta signing pod from the tailgate. Like,
Yeah, you did.
It's-
And I was on my way to the tailgate, so I came to the studio first before going to the tailgate. Yeah.
Yeah, the
Nuts.
Rockies are not. They're not giving us a like 10 a.m. sign
No,
of,
no.
or 10 a.m. trade. They're working deals late into the night.
Also, to be fair, the Michael Lorenzen deal, the Rockies haven't made official yet. So the Rockies didn't even do that. That was I don't remember who broke the news, but it was Jeff Passan.
I think it was Hyman.
Was it Heyman or
Yeah.
Hyman or whatever his name is? Yeah, that guy.
Probably Heyman.
Yeah, he hates
Hyman,
us.
yeah.
He's the one who shut us down at winter meetings when we went to ask him for an interview, and he said, "Not today, boys. Not today."
No,
Next time.
I don't have time for you.
Not today,
What team
fellas.
are you asking about? The Rockies? Yeah, no time for that.
Yeah, I know. It's like, damn, all right, chill. Sorry we asked. Okay, Hunter Goodman. Now, not a guy that you would expect to be talking about right now because there's nothing wrong with him. He had a great season.
Those are the people we talk about. New people and the people that we have issues
like,
with.
Are we moving on from him? No. Hunter Goodman's great, but Major League Baseball, or is it ESPN or is it MLB.com?
It's MLB.com.
MLB.com is putting out their top 100 players.
6 p.m. tonight, they'll release 100 through 81. So the top 20 or the last 20.
Bottom 20. Okay. So the question that I wanted to ask that Spencer actually brought up before the show got started is Hunter Goodman going to make it within MLB's top 100 players? Drop us a comment in the Toyota chat. Let us know what you think. Do you think Hunter Goodman is a top 100 player given his offense? We know it's high level. Also given his defense, given his versatility, given his age, all of that, his WAR, his stats. Is Hunter Goodman a top 100 player? What do you think?
I think he is. Because for
Okay.
context, starting the 2025 season, so the MLB does their top 100 before a season or like the current from the last season going into the year. And then they do a top 100 now, for where the guys are at now going into the 2026 season. Number 99 was Jacob deGrom. Number 100 was, oh my God, I just had it on the tip of my tongue and I forgot about it.
I have no idea.
Will Smith was number 61.
Okay.
So Will Smith, the catcher of the Dodgers, the Rockies' current Silver Slugger that took over Will Smith's offensive numbers this year, which shocked us all.
It did. It really did. Yeah.
Hunter Goodman winning the Silver Slugger was shocking, but Will Smith was at number 61. And then you had Jacob deGrom at 99. Oh, and Roki Sasaki was at 100.
Yes, you're right. It was.
He'll jump up a shitload, obviously, based on where he was.
Nolan jumped down to what, 97 or something like that?
Yeah, Nolan Arenado was in the 90s. So Hunter Goodman, I do believe he makes the top 100. And like Scott says, he'll be in this first wave. He'll be in 81 to 100. I think they'll give the Rockies a little bit of love. And with the offensive season that Goodman had, first All-Star appearance, like, in the MLB, we've talked about it. The All-Star game, obviously, every team gets a guy. So it waters down the product a little bit. But Hunter Goodman truly deserved to be an All-Star. And for the 2025 campaign that he put together, I believe he's eligible. I think he'll be a top 100 player.
See, and I'm kind of with Lefty in this one. I don't know if he's there yet. His offense is there by far. If he does it again next year, he's in the conversation. Absolutely. But his defense at times has been a liability. A lot of times behind the dish. He improved. I'll put it this way. He did improve behind the dish, but it was still a liability. And that was also on display during the All-Star game as well, when he caught, I think, for an inning or whatever it was. But I just don't think he's had enough production yet. He hasn't had enough time. I do also think that there's a little Rockies bias in there, not in a good way, that, someone's going to say, yeah, well, he had good production, but he was on the Rockies. I mean, right? Like the bar set super low. I'll say that I won't be shocked if I see him in that first round of numbers, but if he's not in the first round of numbers, he's not in it.
No, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, he's going to have to be.
He's got to be in the 90s.
In the 90s. Yeah, he'll be in the 90s. It may be a sympathy top 100, like Scott says, but I think
he's got good offense. I mean,
you're the best offensive catcher one of the two best offensive catchers in the entire league.
Yeah,
maybe that warrants
one of three.
And they, I should say it's Cal Raleigh, and then you could argue. I mean, the Silver Slugger award kind of says it's Goodman, but when you pair the defensive job with what Will Smith does in the playoffs every year, it's tough to say whether Goodman's the second or third best catcher in the entire league overall, especially offensively. But I think that warrants maybe a top 100. And I think, the Rockies are gaining in national news, the Rockies are gaining a little bit of goodwill and like I think some
competence.
Yeah, I think more national reporters are saying, hey, this obviously is not going to be a great team in 2026, but they're turning their head to pay attention to what we're doing rather than just putting everything down and saying, oh, it's the Rockies.
Yeah, or at least they're saying they're not as dysfunctional as they used to be, right? I don't know if they're really, tuning in to what the Rockies are doing, but they're kind of at this point like, yeah, they're not as bad as they used to be, right?
What was the one-word quote we got from, who is the really short guy at winter meetings that you...
Better. It was from Ken Rosenthal.
Yeah, Ken Rosenthal.
Better. A classic, really short guy. Yes.
Yeah, he had 1 second for us.
Yes,
Diamond didn't have any seconds for us, but Rosenthal had a second for us to say, how are the Rockies doing? Better.
Yeah, he did, which I appreciate. I know they're busy guys. But yeah, he did say the Rockies are better, which is true. They have been better. Now, I still think the Rockies are going to lose 100 games next year, probably a little bit more. But the processes, the systems have been better, and that's been on display. It's the first time that I think we've seen some moves get made in an offseason. Maybe Thairo Estrada last offseason, I was okay with the Thairo Estrada deal. But it's the first time where I think as a collective, most Rockies fans, even the casual Rockies fans, kind of look at it. They do their little brief research, and they say, Michael Lorenzen, okay, that makes sense. All right, Jake McCarthy. If you get into the weeds a little bit, you can say, all right, that kind of makes sense too. It just depends on what they end up doing with it. But I don't think there's people crashing out about what the Rockies are doing yet. And yes, albeit small moves. They're not swinging for the fences just yet. They're just putting the ball in play. Paul DePodesta's going up, swinging for contact right now. But he hasn't struck out yet. We're doing good.
Yeah,
we're getting bad on ball.
They're getting bad on ball. They're taking pitches is what they're doing.
Yeah.
They're
competent at bats.
Yeah, they're finding where the arm angle's at. They're seeing a few. They want to see a strike. And now I feel like they've started to swing the bat a little bit by going to get a Lorenzen and trading for an MLB level outfielder that gives you a depth at the least and gives you a chance to maybe move on from one of your guys that you think is part of the future of the core. Yeah,
they're kind of embracing the Tyler Freeman approach at the plate, right? Not a lot of strikeouts. He's not going to hit any bombs very often, but he'll get on base. He'll put some balls in play.
Moneyball it a
little bit.
He'll
moneyball it a little bit. Yeah, absolutely. So, no, the front office, I think, has done a pretty good job of garnering some of that, trust, some of that goodwill is a better way of putting it. But we'll see. Time will tell. And I know this is going to be a long season. I know it's going to be a season filled with probably a lot of losses. So we're going to have patience. It's one of my New Year's resolutions. Again, only one crash out I'm allowed this season. So we're gonna have patience. We're gonna take deep breaths, and we're gonna enjoy the ride. That's kind of the motto for this year.
Yeah, exactly. We got a quote. Thomas Harding wrote a good article on McCarthy. Quote from him: "We played the Rockies a bunch when I was with Arizona, so I had a front row seat to all the talent in this clubhouse. I'm excited to be a part of it, and I want to be trending upward, playing the game the right way, and giving us a shot to do some damage, and not to just like lean into this Moneyball thing at all, but." I think the Rockies are going to go for some of those guys, not only because it's easier to do because they're cheaper, but they're going to go for some of those guys that maybe didn't have, they've shown some things in the past, and McCarthy's a perfect example of this, shown some things in the past, didn't have the best 24 or 25, and the Rockies didn't either. So they're trying to rebuild the thing together instead of throwing somebody in that maybe had a great 24 and hoping for them to lift the Rockies' spirits and lift their win total. And paying for it. Exactly. I mean, McCarthy's making $1.5 million this year. So
Yeah, 100%. Dinger's Burner in the chat says, only question from this offseason, who is Troy Johnston and what is he doing on the 40-man? I don't know if I said this to you guys last time when Troy got signed, but I actually went to high school with his cousin. So his cousin actually texted me when Troy got signed and was like, you guys are getting stud, like he's such a good player. But
really?
Obviously he's pretty biased. I mean, he's cousin.
Yeah, so the interesting thing about Troy Johnston is I actually, Dinger's Burner, thought the same thing. I thought we had talked about him potentially playing first base, but looking at the 40-man roster, he's also a left-handed hitting outfielder. Now, McCarthy's obviously on a different level than him, but it's interesting to see because I thought we might see him at first base this year.
I didn't even realize that he had an option other than first base.
Yeah, he's listed as an outfielder and a right fielder. That's what he played all last year for the Marlins.
Okay. So now the Rockies have what, 7 outfielders?
Yeah. Basically, I mean, their 40-man roster has Beck, Doyle, Fernandez, Freeman, Johnston, McCarthy, Moniak, Thompson, and Veen.
Interesting. I am really curious. One of the big storylines I want to follow from 2026 is what do the Rockies do with Zach Veen? We know what the previous administration thought about him. I'm sure those rumors and, trickles down into this new administration's, ears, but I'm curious what they do with him. I'm curious if they give him another chance or if they trade him or if they just let him sit in triple. Like, I just don't, I have no guesses on what they're going to do with Zach Veen. Yet I think he's still listed as one of the biggest prospects for the Rockies, or one of the top prospects for the Rockies. So I am truly curious to see what they end up doing with him. Sterling Thompson, Dinger's burner, another prospect that I'm curious to see what ends up happening with him. Adai Alamador, I think you got to cut ties from him this year. We could do a whole show on what needs to happen with these prospects. We got to pause for our last break on the show. After the break, the Major League Baseball commissioner threw out some pretty crazy ideas this last week, and we got to talk about them. Not that they had too much to do with the Rockies, but some pretty big swings by the commissioner in his last article. So we'll talk about that coming up next. Before we get into this whole commissioner situation, I don't know if you guys saw this. Michael Toglia signed with the Cincinnati Reds. Good for him. It took a while. I was starting to get a little nervous for Toglia. I think he deserves another chance. Get him in with a different coaching staff. Get him in with some guys some new teammates, and just see what he can do. We know he's got the raw talent. I hope nothing but the best for Michael Toglia.
Yeah, he feels like a perfect Cincinnati Red. They have a lot of guys that can hit some bombs, strike out a lot. Spencer Steer, obviously one of my favorite players because his name's Spencer. And his last, what a name.
What a name.
If my name was Spencer Steer, I think I'd have a lot more swag than
Spencer Smith is
Spencer
close.
Smith. Yeah, it's
close.
It's nice. The only thing that's nice about my name is I don't have to spell it for people.
It's true.
That's it. Other than that, it's like, hey, it's the most.
It's not Spencer with a Z or something like that.
Yeah, exactly. It's just, or a Smith with a Y. Some of the hockey players back in the day, Ryan Smith with a Y.
Yeah, Ryan Smith, exactly. Yeah, it is interesting to see how Michael Toglia fell off the wagon, but hoping for the best for him with the Reds. Although it is, I think Scott was the one who said this. He's not playing in Cincinnati. He's playing in Louisville.
Yeah,
so,
and that may be even a stretch at this point.
yeah. Good.
Is there like a certain age where it's like high school sports? You can only play varsity, or you can't play JV if you're a senior. Is Michael Toglia in that realm where he can't go down to AA because he's already been in the majors too much?
That was the who was the guy? He holds the record for most home runs in AAA. He was on the Rockies off and on. The outfielder. I'm spacing on his name. He had the long hair. He was just on the Rockies. Anyways, I'm completely spacing on his name. But he's now playing overseas. You guys will know exactly who I'm talking about. I'm just having a brain fart. But he was like that.
Oh, Sam Hilliard?
Sam Hilliard. Thank you. Why could I not remember Sam Hilliard's name? Sam Hilliard was like that for me, where I'm like, well, he's not really going anywhere else. It's either AAA or he's in the bigs. I think Toglia is at that point too. So we'll see how that turns out. But Major League Baseball commissioner, I read through this article with the New York Times a couple days ago. Commissioner threw out some pretty wild ideas, and I'll start with this. He did say that all of these ideas were kind of outlandish. It was kind of like his golden bat rule that he talked about last year, which was just fun conversation pieces. But he did say these would be really hard things to actually do, but that he was open to them. The biggest one to me, there was two that he talked about specifically. The first one was a split season, which I don't even really know what that would end up looking like, right? Like, he wants to split up the season. Major League Baseball season, very long season. We know that. We know how many games there are. So the idea is to, I think, take some of the pressure off of the players, give them a little bit more of a break. That one was a little bit weird. But the other one was an in-season tournament, which the minute you hear in-season tournament, you obviously think of Adam Silver and the NBA. I think the NBA is going to get rid of the in-season tournament. If I heard that correctly, I think they're trending towards removing the in-season tournament because it was kind of fun the first year because it was novel. Now it's just it's just weird. It's just a distraction. Nobody cares about it unless you're the Lakers, and then you go hang an in-season tournament banner in your arena. But other than that, no one else cares about it. Would you be in favor of a Major League Baseball in-season tournament?
Yes, because I would, because we are the perfect franchise that would love. We got a banner for not the worst team in history. I would 100% be hanging a banner from this bar of the in-season tournament winners. So yes, for where the Rockies are at right now, to me, that would imagine an in-season tournament last year. Would the Rockies have been out in the first round? Most likely. But if you're, what were they 7-30 something at some point, and you're like, hey, all this is wiped clean in June. We're going to play an in-season tournament.
And their month of June was 500 for the first half of the month.
Yeah, and they have a chance to win that? Yeah. Yes. Now, are the Dodgers, the Mets, the Padres, the Yankees, the Blue Jays, those teams going to care about this? No. But to me, we're in the position we're in with the Colorado Rockies. I think an in-season tournament would be one of the most electric things we could do. We could do watch-alongs for it. It would be like, hey, this is a little taste of what it's like to play playoff level baseball, or when you're in the hunt for the wild card at the end of the season. That's how all these teams feel. Every game matters. Well, you erase the actual regular season record from it and play an in-season tournament, Rockies would be sick.
I do agree. From a Rockies perspective, I actually think I did a Denver sports podcast on this last year. From a Rockies perspective, it would be electric because of what you just said. It would give you something to cheer for that's different, right? We all know Rockies aren't going into the playoffs anytime soon. So if we could say, and baseball's such a wild sport that anything could happen, if we could sit there and say, hey, we've got a 2-week span of games that if the Rockies can just go off for 2 weeks, which we did see a couple times in the month of June where they were beating good teams, we could have a chance to win this in-season tournament, and that could be the highlight of the entire season. Now, from an overall baseball perspective, it's a joke. This can't happen. The commissioner cannot put an in-season tournament in baseball. The logistics of that would be a nightmare. The travel is different. The amount of games are different. It's just a totally different experience. NBA, you play one game and then you go to the next city, right? You don't have series during the season. So it wouldn't make sense. I think it got the most hate. It got even more hate on Twitter than the Golden Bat Rule, which is shocking because the Golden Bat Rule was an insane thing to think about even to begin with. But it would be fun to think about for the Rockies. I would get 100% on board. We'd make a thing out of it.
Oh, 100%. And when you think of these crazy ideas, as life goes on and these things change, if we were doing this podcast in 2015, let's say, and somebody from the future came down and told you that in 2020, I think it started in 2023, maybe 2024, that MLB would be on a pitch clock, you'd be like, that's insane.
True.
That's absolutely insane.
Baseball,
a shot clock, like basketball, that's crazy.
Baseball is averse to change.
Yeah, and now it's here, and it's kind of just normal, and it's just something that all the players have gotten used to, and they're, it's just something. So it does feel outlandish, but for where the Rockies are in in-season tournament, I would love nothing more.
Yeah, that would be fun.
And to go on a little comment on the split season, I don't know exactly what that means either, but I think you're weighing into some murky waters with that, because look at all the teams that play outside, and you're going later into October with the year or starting earlier in March. I mean, Colorado is a perfect example of that. Yes, it's 65 here today, but every year on opening day, it seems to be either perfect or it's snowing.
Yeah.
And how many teams have a snowpening day, essentially, because they play outside? And then when the World Series was here, everybody had their black Under Armour on. It's freezing cold. So I think while 162 games is a lot and the players could use a break, I think you're tempting fate going into the early March or late October with the weather.
Yeah, I just think the logistics of all of this is tough, right? It's hard to think that any of this could work from a logistics standpoint. The other thing he talked about was a free agent signing deadline, which again got a ton of hate. If there was something I could change in Major League Baseball right now, if there was one thing that I could change, aside from salary caps and all that argument, one thing I could change in Major League Baseball today, put the draft in the offseason. Why does Major League Baseball not do what the NFL does, where the NFL says, we're going to have the offseason, you have obviously enough media coverage when games are happening. Then the offseason comes, and we're going to put one media event after another so that you have an endless amount of things to talk about and an endless amount of things to think about. The fact that winter meetings are technically the only true off-season thing and the only real thing from a fan's perspective outside of signing players and trades and stuff like that is the draft lottery. You just figure out when you're going to be drafting. is so dumb in Major League Baseball from my perspective. I feel like if you could flip it where during the All-Star game, All-Star, break, that's when you have the draft lottery. And then during the offseason, December is when you actually do the draft, the like Major League Baseball draft. That would be a great change to baseball.
Yeah, doing it right in the middle of the season, while it was nice for us last year, just to have some fun and be pumped about Ethan Holiday middle of the year when we're just drowning in our terrible record. Yeah. It could make it fun to make it in the offseason just like every other, and have, those players aren't going to come up in March, but you have a whole new, like, you don't have to wait from July or June, whenever the draft is, till March to see, like, Ethan Holiday will be in spring training this year, and that'll be fun, but it could have been fun if we drafted him a week ago, 2 weeks ago, and then you're like, oh, well, he's reporting to spring training, or at least be there in 3 to 4 months, kind of create some excitement. I actually am going back on my take. I just Googled split season, and I'm all the way in. Because in 1981, they had a split season, and the roughly 81 games is what it would be, and the winner of the first half and the winner of the second half advanced to the postseason.
Really?
Can you imagine if last year, the first half the Rockies had, they fired Bud Black, they're terrible. If in July we just got to wipe that slate clean and cheer for a second half potential postseason berth, I'm all the way in on split season.
Oh my
do
God.
it.
Yeah.
Gimmicky or not, do it. It's kind of
it probably
electric.
works out for the Rockies, but I just don't think, again, big picture, baseball-wise, it doesn't make sense. Any other team aside from the Rockies, because we're looking for little ways to, like, get an advantage. Understandably so. We lost 119 games last year. Felix says, did he talk about realignment? That's another part of it. Every time we talk about realignment, it's like, how can we get ourselves out of the NL West? And while I understand the sentiment, the competitor in me wants to be like, no, screw that. Like, let's go out and win the damn NL West. I get that it's going to take a decade or more, or maybe it never happens, but, like, I want to do this the right way. I don't want to, like, take the side route to, like, figure it out. Like, I want to actually do this.
A banner's going to look good no matter how.
I mean, yes, you're right.
Yes.
You're right. A banner looks good no matter what.
We need a banner. And I will say, Felix, on realignment, we probably won't have much of that info until we have new franchises. I think that's what will spur realignment, obviously, because you're going to have to change divisions. You have a perfect 30 teams, 6 divisions now with 5 teams in each division. But when they add and probably go to 32, you're probably going to see 8 divisions of 4 teams. And maybe the Rockies are in a division with more like the Royals or the Astros, kind of like we talked about. I think once the new teams are announced and the expansion teams are announced, which is a whole nother change to Major League Baseball that I think would be positive, especially for a couple cities. I think that's when you'll get the realignment, and maybe the Rockies catch a break there and get like the D-backs, the Astros, and the Royals, and then it's like a little bit closer for the travel and division teams.
So he did actually talk about that. He did talk about realignment, and really the only thing he went into was kind of confirming that they would not be including teams in the same market in the same division, right? So you wouldn't be putting the Mets in the same division as the Yankees, right? They would separate those two teams. They would separate the California teams.
The Cubs
so the Padres and the
White Sox.
Dodgers would not be in the same division. Yeah, exactly. So that could work out for the Rockies because, unfortunately, our market is a very competitive market. The teams in our general area, but yeah, that would be. The realignment has to wait until they get the expansion because it just doesn't make sense to realign everything and then make all of those adjustments. But I think all of these conversations are fun and they're good, and maybe one day stuff will happen. But the reality is, this upcoming 2027 salary cap deal is all that matters. That's all they're going to be thinking about. This is all white noise. The commissioner talking about this, if I had to guess, is probably him just trying to deflect some of the attention from what's coming up in 2027. And it's looking like, from the conversations that I'm reading and the articles that I'm reading, it's looking like Major League Baseball, the commissioner, Dick Monfort, their side of things, are going to be holding very firm on the salary cap and salary floor and all of those aspects. And of course, the Players Association is not going to stand for that. So we're looking a little bleak in 2027, but that's not new information. I think just these side conversations are just kind of white noise to deflect from that a little bit.
Yeah, I really hope that we're in a year from now, we're not talking about a salary cap would be fine because once again, we're looking at this from a Rockies angle, but I really hope we're not talking about no baseball.
I know.
Off season's long enough. If we had to go a whole summer without baseball, my kid might dissipate. He might.
Yeah, dude,
cry.
I know. That's going to be the first, like, my newborn will be 1.5 at that point, and that's like, you start going to games and letting them enjoy. They start to enjoy sports. Yeah, that'll be really sad. So, not to end the show on a downer, but yeah, hopefully we got baseball in 2027.
Rockies got Michael Lorenzen. We're gonna finish the show on that. Michael Lorenzen. And
we have a new pitcher.
Jake McCarthy.
Exactly. Thank you guys for watching. Appreciate you hanging out as always. We will see you guys next week. We might have a different schedule next week because next week is Fan Fest. We're trying to see if we can figure out how to do a show from Coors Field. I'm talking with our contacts at the Rockies, so we're trying to figure that out. So just stay tuned on Twitter. We'll probably announce something as it comes up. But either way, thanks for watching. We'll see you guys next time right here on the DNVR Rockies podcast.
We all silly like the mayor.